Okay, hello, and welcome back to the podcast. I know it has been quite a long time, but I'm back, and that's all that matters. You might be wondering, Sydney, your camera quality looks so much better. Thank you for saying that. I'm recording on an actual camera this time, and not just my phone, so hopefully the quality is okay. I'm recording the audio on my phone just in case. To have a backup because I am scared with the problems that I've had that something is going to go awry. But I have been meaning to record an episode for so long and just keep putting it off. And so I'm sitting down and I'm just going to talk and recap and rehash life and talk about whatever I want to talk about. I did want to do a little recap of my Spain trip because I feel like the last time I recorded was before I went to Spain. So I wanted to do a little Spain recap, things I learned, things I noticed, and all that sort of jazz. So I spent 3 weeks in Spain in July, so last month, and I went by myself. My mom met me for a few days, but for the most part I was by myself, and I personally love doing things alone. I don't know if it's based on my childhood because my parents were divorced, so I flew alone a lot as a child. I was alone a lot of the times because when I visited my dad, he was a severe alcoholic, so I kind of had to fend for myself and entertain myself. So I think I'm just used to entertaining myself and doing things on my own, which I think definitely helps in these sort of situations where you're kind of in unfamiliar territory and you're not like super sure about what you're doing or where you're going and that sort of thing. So I know I had a lot of reactions when I told people I was going alone that were like, oh, is that safe? Like, why, how are you doing that? Like, you feel comfortable doing that? And I think a lot of it is from my childhood and just feeling comfortable doing things alone. But as I was reflecting on that, I was thinking about how, if that's true, and if I have been independent since I was a kid. And it's not entirely, because I remember when I was in high school, and this is really silly, but at lunchtime, I always had to go to the bathroom with one of my friends. And that was the case for all of us. Whenever we would have to go to the bathroom, we'd be like, okay, who's gonna go with me? Like, I need one of the girls to go with me. Like, we couldn't get up and do it alone. And so it's really interesting to think about how when I was a kid, I was pretty independent, and now I'm very independent, but there was a long period of time in middle, high school, college where I was not that way. Like, I needed people to go with me places. I needed other people's opinions and feedback on everything, which is very normal, but I feel like I've definitely grown a lot from that. And I think that a lot of that has to do with becoming more sure of yourself, because I was also thinking about how these days I don't ever really look in the mirror that often. I don't really do my makeup, I don't really do my hair, and I feel like it's because, and this is going a little bit off topic, but I just feel like this is kind of where I wanted to take this episode, and like my feelings on independence and being sure of yourself and being confident is my validation for myself is much more internal now than it used to be. I feel like in middle school, high school, college, like obviously you're in those transitional years where you aren't really sure of yourself, and a lot of your validation and self-worth does come from your external appearance, just because that's kind of what we're conditioned to believe. And with social media and with gaining attention from boys or girls or whoever you're interested in, a lot of that is based on our appearance and what we look like. And so I used to care so much about that, and as a result I was so lacking confidence. I remember specifically in middle school, I missed probably a month or two in 7th grade, which is a lot of school, because I was so uncomfortable in my own skin and so insecure that I didn't want to go to school. I would literally bawl my eyes out before going, and I would tell my mom, like, can I please just take a sick day? Can I please stay home? Like, I really don't want to see anyone. I don't want anyone to see me, more importantly. I was so insecure that I didn't want anyone to see me. And even if I did go to school, I would go to the bathroom and cry because I felt so ashamed of myself and so ashamed to be in the skin that I was in. And that's really sad. That, looking back, that makes me so sad that I missed out on so much school and childhood because I cared so much about what I looked like. And obviously, that's not to say that I don't completely care at all what I look like now. Like, I'm not saying I don't care about appearance at all. I think we all, to some extent, do care about our appearance a little bit because we're human, and that's normal, especially in our society, which is so, again, focused on appearance and physical looks. But I do think now my validation much more so comes from who I am as a person, and it's going to be cliche to say this, but what's on the inside. And that is the same for when I'm looking at other people as well, and like my friendships and my romantic interests. Yes, obviously, like, we're all immediately attracted to someone based on their physical appearance, but I have found that that is so much less important now than it was when I was younger, and it was like, oh, who's the hottest boy? Like, who's the hottest guy I can take to the dance or to this formal event? Like, now I care so much more about what is in someone's heart and what is in their mind and who they are as a person. And I think that that is just a reflection of what I value in myself as well. Because people always say that the things that you value in other people are the things that you value about yourself the most, or the things that you desire for yourself the most. And to me now, that is kindness, that is humility, that is having a sense of humor. Those are the top things that I value in myself and that I seek in other people now. And I think that it's very interesting how that has changed over time as my self-worth and sense of validation has changed over time as well. So all that to say that was a very long tangent, but that is kind of what I wanted to talk about today, in leading to me being very independent and very sure of myself now, that I was able to go and do this trip by myself and not feel remotely insecure or remotely unsure of myself. Because ultimately, if you aren't sure of who you are, if you aren't confident in who you are, if you don't know yourself, that is going to lead you to feel unsure of your actions and things that you're doing in life. So if I was still in that place that I was when I was younger and I tried to do this trip alone, I think I would have a lot of issues because I wouldn't feel comfortable going to restaurants alone. I wouldn't feel comfortable going and walking the streets alone, but I did feel so comfortable doing those things because I know who I am and I know what I value. And once again, my sense of self is much more internalized than it used to be, than in caring so much about appeasing other people through my physical appearance and looking a certain way and caring so much about that. I hope that makes sense. I know that was kind of like a long, rambly explanation, but ultimately my message to my younger self and to people that may be struggling with doing things by themselves or in being independent is to develop your sense of self and really get to know yourself. Because I think so many of us don't take the time to know ourselves. We seek out other people and oftentimes can become codependent when we don't truly know ourselves because we need to lean on someone else to give us that sense of security and that sense of validation. But if you are so secure in yourself and you know who you are, you don't need that other person. You don't need that external validation to make you feel whole, if that makes sense. And I was very much that way. The times from middle school to college, and even post-college, when I felt very insecure in my appearance was when I needed someone else in my life romantically. I was so codependent on my ex-boyfriends, on having some sort of romantic interest, having that sort of physical connection because I needed someone else to prove to me who I was and to prove to me that I was worthwhile and that I mean something. And now that I'm out of that place, I haven't been in a relationship in like 2 years at this point. I have no desire to be in one, and I know that that's going to change over time. I'm not saying that I am going to be solo forever, but I'm so comfortable in who I am now that I do not have that strong desire to be in a relationship or to have that romantic interest, because I'm okay with who I am and I'm at peace with being alone. And I love being alone because I love myself and I love the person that I am, because I've done the inner work to focus on what I value in myself and to develop those characteristics that I value in myself, which again is kindness, humility, empathy, all of these things that I now hold so true to my identity. My identity is not tied to my physical appearance, it is tied to who I am as a person. And I think that that is also so important because our physical appearance changes all the time. Our weight fluctuates, we have skin issues, we grow older, we get wrinkles, we experience aging, we experience life, and that means that our external appearance changes. But what doesn't change is who you are on the inside. What you always have to rely on is your identity. And that's also partially why I find it so important to get to know yourself and to find out what you value, is because that is going to stick with you over time, and that is going to be your compass in making decisions, in making friendships, relationships, everything is by listening to that internal compass and knowing what aligns with you and what doesn't. And I feel like I used to have such a poor sense of self when I did have that reliance on my external appearance that I couldn't make decisions for myself. I needed the opinions of so many people before I could make a decision. I still do. Sometimes, obviously, we all do. We like to get the advice of the people around us. I still do that, but I used to be so bad about it. I would need to text every single person I knew before making a decision. And even then, I still couldn't do it. I would need to go on TikTok. I would need to go on Google and be like, what should I do about this situation? And I still didn't feel comfortable when I did make the decision because I didn't know myself and I didn't know if it aligned with who I am. And now I can say that I have a much stronger sense of self and a much stronger sense of my identity, that I can make decisions and I know when something aligns with me and when something does not. All that to say that developing your sense of self and finding things internally that you value in yourself will help you gain confidence, self-worth, and the ability to do things on your own without needing someone else or someone else's opinion to do what you truly want to do. That's what I have to say about identity and being independent, and that is what personally I think has helped me. I think the only way to develop this capacity as well in a more practical way is to start small and start by doing things alone that you might normally need someone else to do. So let's say that you always have to grab coffee with someone, or you always have to do a workout class with someone or go on a walk with someone else, which is totally okay, by the way. But if you want to work on your independence, start small. Start by going to a cafe and enjoying your coffee and just people watching and or bringing a book and just sitting there and sitting in the discomfort that might come with doing something alone for the first time. Discomfort means that we are doing something outside of what we are normally used to. And at first, it might feel weird, but once you push past that feeling, you will become a stronger version of yourself. And that's true with anything. Once you do something the first time, it feels uncomfortable. But then once you keep doing it, once you rewire your synapses, you will start to find comfort in that new feeling and form new pathways that will make these new things feel more normal to you. So it might be scary, but start small and then build up from there and see how much your life changes and how freeing it is to be able to do things by yourself whenever you want and not have to rely on someone else to be there for you or to do these things for you or with you. And once again, it is totally fine to want to do things with other people. That's so normal. We as human beings are communal. We grew up in communities. Our ancestors survived and thrived in communities. It's very normal that we want to do things with other people and to rely on other people. That is so normal and amazing, and one of the beautiful parts about being human. But it is so freeing at the same time to enjoy your alone time and to do things alone and feel comfortable in doing so. It's very, very freeing and will give you so much more confidence in yourself once you start to do those things. And straying away from that topic specifically, I did want to talk about Spain in general and things I noticed and things that I learned and my tips and my advice and that sort of thing. So I think one of the first things I wanted to say is that I got kind of stuck in the trap of going on TikTok and going online religiously and searching what I should do, like top spots I should hit, bucket list ideas. Like, it was an overwhelming amount of people's opinions that I was listening to and catering to and planning my trip around, which is great to get inspiration from and to develop a framework for, obviously, because going to a foreign place where you don't know anyone, you don't speak the language, is very difficult. So it's always nice to have an outline or an idea of what you want to do. But at the end of the day, you are your own person, and we all enjoy doing different things. So reading online about doing tapas tours and seeing X number of cathedrals and going on this walking tour and seeing this museum, it's not all going to be for you. You know what you're interested in. Maybe you're a food person. So yes, so do the tapas tours, do the wine tastings, do the bar hopping and that sort of thing. But if you're not a food person, maybe you're more into arts, do the museum tours, do some art history lessons, find what is calling to you and do that, because ultimately when you do these trips, they're for you. They're not for anyone else. And I had to learn that because I felt like I was going to a lot of places and doing a lot of things to appease a bucket list or to do things that I felt like I had to do because everyone online was recommending them. When in reality, I realized I don't really like spending all my time in museums when I'm abroad. I prefer to be outside. I prefer to be talking to people. I prefer to be trying new things. I don't necessarily vibe as much with going to museums and doing like guided tours per se. So I really had to rewire my brain while I was there and say, is this even aligning with who I am? Like, do I even want to be doing this right now? I had a moment where I was in one of the museums in Madrid, and I had waited so long to get in, and then once I was in and I was looking at all the paintings, I was like, man, I really would rather be exploring the park right now. And so I left and I went and explored the park because that's what I wanted to do in the moment. And even though I had spent money on the ticket and spent a lot of time in line, I was like, this is not aligning with who I am right now. So I'm going to go do what I want to do and not worry about it because this trip is for me and not anyone else. And so that kind of also just goes back to the self-confidence thing and knowing who you are and your identity is you know what is going to align with you and what isn't. And if something isn't feeling right, if something's not calling to you, you'll know that. You'll feel that in your gut and you'll listen to that and do something else. And not necessarily need to follow the opinions of other people or what everyone else is telling you to do. So that was the first lesson I learned. And one that I think is really important whenever you're doing something new. I would also say to try to immerse yourself in the culture as much as possible. I feel like before I went to Spain, I was doing a lot of research and people were saying, oh, you don't need to know Spanish, like everyone there speaks English, which for the most part is true. A lot of people do speak English, but I really wish that I had brushed up on my Spanish more because I did speak Spanish for 6 years and I hadn't done a refresh before going because, again, I had heard all these opinions of people saying that everyone speaks English. And that was not my experience in every case. There was a lot of instances, especially in the not as populated areas or in maybe more local businesses, where the people did not speak English, and I was really fumbling to try to speak Spanish and communicate effectively. And I know that I was not communicating that well, but I was trying. And so I really do wish that I had taken the time to learn Spanish before and brush up on my Spanish, so that I did feel more comfortable in ordering food and in talking to people, because it does present a barrier when you're in another country and can't easily communicate with the people that live there. It's really difficult to do things day to day when you have that barrier in place. And yes, you'll be able to make it work. Yes, you can always use Google Translate. But I just think that if you really want to immerse yourself in the experience and get the most out of it, you should try your best to at least learn basic phrases and be able to communicate somewhat effectively with the people that live there. I think it's also just the nice thing to do as well, because you shouldn't expect everyone to know how to speak your language when you're in another country. And so I really wish that I had taken the time to brush up on my Spanish, ultimately. Another thing that I noticed was that people were not on their phones as much, which I thought was really awesome. Like going out to eat, or at cafes, or walking down the street, people were not heads down in their phones, or didn't all have headphones in, which I feel like walking around, especially in Los Angeles or like a big city, you always see people either heads down on their phones or with headphones on. Most people don't look at you or smile at you, because we are such an independent culture, and we do, I don't know, kind of value like the grind and the hustle. It's like you're not as much present in the moment, I've found here. But in Spain, it did seem like people were much more present and in the moment, and it was really a cool thing to notice, because even people eating alone at restaurants were just kind of sitting there enjoying their meals. They weren't on their phones, they weren't on TikTok, they weren't watching something. They were just present in the moment. And so that's something that I kind of was like, I wish America was more like this, but also I can be more like this. I don't need to be on my phone when I'm out in public. I don't need to be constantly listening to something or stimulating myself. I can just kind of be there and enjoying the moment. Okay, I think I'm going to cut this here. I do want to talk more about Spain, but I'm also running out of time because I have to go to yoga soon. But I just wanted to make sure that I spoke on some things that I wanted to speak on and sat down and really took the time to just communicate how I'm feeling and how I felt about my trip, and just let you guys know that I'm still here and that I really do want to record more episodes and have guests on and really put time and energy into this, because I've always wanted to have a podcast. I've always wanted to speak on a variety of topics, and I feel very grateful and blessed that I have the opportunity to do so. So I am really going to try to do it more, and I hope that this was interesting. And if you have any questions or comments or things I could do better, feedback, please let me know. I am always here to listen and to do better if I messed up or said anything insensitive or anything like that. So just let me know. And I will talk to you guys next time. Thank you so much for listening, as always. I really appreciate you.